to...
11 years after their fairy tale wedding, Charles and Di agree to lead separate lives. And good morning, America. I'm Charles Gibson.
And I'm Dana King in for Joan London. It's Thursday, December 10th. You know, some say it was bound to happen. After years of rumor, innuendo, and denial, the Prince and Princess of Wales, Charles and Diana, have reached an agreement to end their unhappy marriage. It's a formal separation, which would allow him to still be king, she could still be queen. But why in this day and age, when the monarch is just a figurehead, does their split cause national concern in Britain? We're going to ask a leading British broadcaster. But also this morning, joining us from far away is Spencer Christian, who's in Jackson, Mississippi this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Dana. I'm in Jackson to help celebrate the 175th anniversary of Mississippi's statehood. Also, weather-wise, a major rain and snowstorm is preparing to hit the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. I'll have details coming up in this half hour. Charlie?
All right, thanks very much, Spencer. Dana King in for Joan this morning. And we should mention, if you don't already know, haven't read it in your local newspapers, we're going to be starting a Sunday edition.
That's right.
Of Good Morning America.
January 3rd, bright and early, 8 o'clock.
And the whole show's already ready to go, right?
Oh, yeah. All written down, memorized.
Right. Anyway, Dana will be here with Bill Ritter to do that, and look forward to that starting off. Also this morning, we're going to check in on events in Somalia, of course, with Denise Richardson, who'll be joining us from the capital, Mogadishu. Also this morning with us, a man who has dedicated himself to the urgent needs of the developing world, former President Jimmy Carter. But first, let's go to the news. Mike Schneider standing by with the latest. Mike?
Thank you, Charlie. Good morning, everybody. You probably think of Somalia as a dry, parched kind of land, but this morning in Mogadishu, it is raining. It's been raining for a while. It's been raining very hard, and there are flooding conditions there. The streets are very muddy. It's turning out to be the biggest problem of day 2 of this Operation Restore Hope that has been mounted now by U.S. forces and by the French, for that matter, as well. They're still trying to get the Somalian capital totally under their control, and we get details on their efforts from ABC's Linda Patillo.
On the streets of Mogadishu this morning, French legionnaires manned checkpoints looking for weapons. U.S. Marines displayed their firepower in the center of town. And together, they searched the area surrounding the headquarters of one of the city's most powerful warlords. Just one day after they arrived, the UN forces appear determined to rid Mogadishu of the guns that have held the city in terror. It is noticeably calmer.
Everything is coming back to normal. Mogadishu is back to life. That's what we feel right now.
At the city market, the supply of stolen relief food is drying up, and few people are chewing the narcotic leaf khat, which often contributed to the violence here because the planes that bring it from Kenya have been unable to land. There are other signs of change. Former Somali police officers appeared on the street with their uniforms and berets for the first time in 2 years, even though no one is paying them. Instead of guns, they used branches to control the crowds. Early this afternoon, Marine Lieutenant General Robert Johnston, the commander of U.S. troops in Operation Restore Hope, arrived here in Mogadishu. He said he is impressed with the operation so far and the rules of engagement that allow Marines to protect themselves. Later, at a brief news conference with Johnston, U.S. Special Envoy Robert Oakley announced an unprecedented diplomatic effort to solve Somalia's long-term problems.
At 2 o'clock today, the 2 principal Somali, Ali Mahdi and Aidid, each announced on their own radios that they have agreed to meet together for the first time. This meeting will take place tomorrow at the United States Embassy.
The question is, will that meeting come in time to help the people in the Somalian countryside? There has been intense fighting in the area of Baidoa, which is northwest of the city here. We understand that looters attacked the International Red Cross compound there last night. They roughed up some of the workers there and looted some of their supplies. CARE is also reporting an attack on their warehouse. The relief agencies today are quite upset. They are saying that the Marines have to come in immediately or they will be forced to evacuate all of their workers. And some are saying that they will go ahead and evacuate their workers today. That, of course, is putting intense pressure on the U.S. Marines because if this violence continues on their watch, it's not looking good for the Somalia. Mike?
Linda, I don't know if you can hear me well enough, but if you can, do the Marines have any contingency plans to, I guess, respond on an as-call basis to those kind of situations?
I asked that question this morning, and they say General Johnson has just gotten into the country. They don't want to speak on that. Johnson himself clearly did not want to take questions in his earlier briefing. That is his contingent of helicopters leaving here right now. He obviously intends to get right to work. It's very clear that they need to do something about this fighting. If the relief workers pull out, people will literally have nothing to eat in those areas.
All right, Linda, thanks very much. Linda Patillo live for us this morning at the airport in Mogadishu. Thousands of U.S. troops obviously there now, thousands more heading to Somalia or will be shortly. Marines from Camp Pendleton out in California got their last-minute goodbyes in yesterday before heading out on the long trip to Africa. It takes them 27 hours to get there. That is plenty of time to ponder being away for the holidays, but many of the Marines we've spoken to say it seems to be an appropriate time to go out to try to help save lives. But who will save Bosnia? The fighting there has gotten so bad recently in Sarajevo that Defense Secretary Dick Cheney is now talking to other NATO officials today about what they might do to try to stop it. The meeting is going on today in Brussels. Yesterday, the UN Security Council told Serbian forces to back off in Sarajevo or face what the council called further measures. Nothing specified about those further measures. Also overseas, Russia is facing a constitutional crisis of sorts. President Yeltsin has decided now to try to bypass the hardline Congress and take his economic reform package directly to the people. ABC's John Donvan reports.
After weeks of trying to avoid an all-out showdown with his opponents, Russia's President Boris Yeltsin this morning opened fire. Appearing before the Congress of People's Deputies, he all but damned the overwhelmingly anti-Yeltsin body and announced his intentions to prove the people support Yeltsin and reform. Russia, Yeltsin, or the Congress. Then Yeltsin left the hall, taking about 200 of its members with him for a meeting in another part of the Kremlin. This morning he said the Congress has put reforms into serious danger. He claimed that Russia is the target of what he called a creeping coup. Meanwhile, back in the Congress hall, a rumor spread saying that troops under Yeltsin's control were moving toward the hall in preparation for a military takeover, touching off such deep concern that 3 of Yeltsin's highest ministers were called in to deny that security forces are in any way involved in this political crisis. This morning's events appear to signal the end of a period of attempted compromise. The pity in this is that few Russians are interested in sparring at the top, much less being drawn into it by means of a referendum. Most Russians just want their leaders to fix what is wrong with this country and to fix it quickly. John Donvan, ABC News, Moscow.
Back in this country, Bill Clinton will name some members of his cabinet later today. The announcement is expected to include the top members of his economic team. One of them apparently will be the Texas Senator Lloyd Bentsen. He arrived in Little Rock last night. There was strong speculation that he will be named Clinton's Treasury Secretary. Yesterday, Warren Christopher, the man in charge of the Clinton-Gore transition team, unveiled new executive branch ethics guidelines. The new rules are aimed at stopping the so-called revolving door. That's where government jobs and private lobbying jobs seem to go back and forth between one another, people occupying one and then the other. Under these new guidelines, top Clinton appointees will not be allowed to lobby their former government colleagues for 5 years after leaving public service, and they will be permanently banned from lobbying on behalf of foreign countries. That is the news till now. It's time to check in with Charlie.
Thanks very much, Mike. Interesting. We would have thought that new cabinet appointments would be the lead in the news, but now overshadowed by events in the old Yugoslavia, Somalia, Russia, India. Foreign news takes over.
It's been that way the last couple of years, hasn't it?
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike. It is 8 minutes after the hour. We go to Spencer Christian, who has the national weather forecast. He this morning is in Jackson, Mississippi. Spencer, looks comfortable there.
It is very comfortable here, Charlie, and beautiful, too. I'm in the foyer of the Governor's Mansion in Jackson, here to kick off the 175th anniversary of statehood for Mississippi. This is the anniversary date, December 10th. And this Governor's Mansion, by the way, is rather historic as well. It's the second oldest continuously inhabited Governor's Mansion in the country. The first family of Mississippi has lived here since 1842, the oldest in my home state of Virginia. Tell you more about that a little bit later. Right now, let's go to the maps and take a look at today's weather. We've got
He loved. Has the modern British monarch been so besieged by problems of the heart? Yesterday's announcement that Prince Charles and Princess Diana are separating is making some ask just how long the House of Windsor can withstand all the blows. And yet it was hardly 11 years ago when their picture book wedding seemed like a dream come true. It was a fairy tale wedding.
Just delighted and happy. And I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on.
Shy Di appeared to be a picture-perfect princess. Immensely popular with the public, she produced a royal heir less than a year after the wedding. But as Diana's popularity began to eclipse her husband's, Charles reportedly grew irritated and jealous. In time, their different interests and perhaps their different ages drove them in different directions. Soon, Charles was spending more time with his own circle of friends, including one in particular, Camilla Parker Bowles. The strains in the marriage took their toll on Diana's health. There were rumors of bulimia, and according to one recent book, several suicide attempts. Then, in August, a tape was released of a conversation purportedly between Diana and her longtime friend, James Gilby. Over the summer, it was reported that Charles and Diana would not divorce, but a disastrous trip to Korea in the fall and recent reports of another love tape, this one between Charles and Camilla, appear to have been the final blows ending the fairy tale.
1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure. In the words of one of my more sympathetic correspondents, it has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
Well, the streets of London are abuzz, and joining us from London for all the latest on the royal separation is journalist Angela Rippon. Well, good morning, Angela.
Good morning to you, Dana.
They have a lot to separate as well. Now, where do we go from here, and why at this time have they decided to call it quits? It's been coming for so long.
Yes, I think probably that's the key to it, the fact that really since 1985, I mean, as long ago as that, there were rumblings that things were not all well in the House of Windsor. And I think that the press attention and the public attention has built up to absolute fever pitch and boiling point over the last couple of years. And really everybody here in Britain knew that there were major troubles in the Windsor marriage, that they were not happy together. I mean, they have never looked so miserable as they have in the last 5 to 6 months. And so really, while there was just the speculation around it, actually made it very difficult for both of them to have private lives of their own, though even in normal circumstances that is almost an impossibility. In these, it meant that every single thing that they did was under the spotlight at the end of those long focus lenses. Were they smiling at each other? Were they talking to each other? Where were they going to spend their holidays? And I think probably it all just got too much, and they decided that really the best thing was to separate officially, and then at least it's all out in the open and they can now go on and live their separate lives while still maintaining their royal positions and their royal duties.
Now, this is being called a formal separation, not a divorce, but should we read between the lines?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I don't think you've even got to read between the lines. I think it's there in glaring black and white that there's no question at this stage that what we've got is a separation. But I would imagine that given a couple of years when things will perhaps quieten down and maybe some of the press attention will not be quite at the fever pitch that it is at the moment, that we will have an announcement that they'll divorce. There's absolutely no way. Diana is a young woman. She's in her very early 30s. She's not going to want to spend the rest of her life tied to a loveless marriage in which she has no opportunity to have a life of her own. And similarly, the Prince of Wales isn't going to want to do that either. I would not be at all surprised if 2 years down the line from now we're talking about the divorce of the Waleses.
2 years, no fun for anyone. Now, if they do divorce, he can still be king, but can she still be queen? And if that is the case, would the public even accept her as queen?
It's very interesting because when John Major stood up in the House of Commons yesterday and made the statement and said that this will not affect their constitutional roles, there was a buzz in the House of Commons. Nobody could quite believe what they'd just heard John Major say. And one does wonder whether or not he actually made that statement, the sort of thing that one says in the heat of the moment that is instantly regretted, because constitutionalists over here are saying that really there is no reason why, as a separated couple, she should not be queen, though there is a historical precedence which says that she won't be. Certainly if they're divorced, again, there is really no way in which she could or should be queen. First of all, there's no way that the King of England could possibly be tied to a woman who was not going to be his consort, his support as queen. And clearly, they've not been supportive of each other for a number of years now. But interestingly, yesterday in my own programme here in London, we opened the telephone lines to my radio listeners. We took over 2,000 calls in under 2 hours. And the proposition we put was that Diana should be queen, even though she is separated from Prince Charles. 88% of my listeners said, no way. And what they are saying quite clearly is, we love you, Diana, we respect you, but if you don't want to be the wife of Prince Charles, there's no way you can be our queen.
Well, the story continues. Angela Rippon, thank you for joining us from London.
Pleasure.
It's 16
Bye-bye.
after the hour. Former President Jimmy Carter, a champion of people in need, when Good Morning America continues.
19 past the hour. Later today in Washington, former President Jimmy Carter will present the 7th annual Carter-Manill Human Rights Prize, a $100,000 award that recognizes individuals and organizations contributing to the cause of human rights. And we're pleased that President Carter could stop by first to chat a bit. Mr. President, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Charlie. Good to be with you.
I want to start, we'll get to the prize in a moment, want to start with Somalia. I had read that you were opposed to military intervention. Now the troops are in. Still opposed?
No, I haven't been opposed to it. I just lamented the fact that it was necessary. Early this year, in January, there was an effort made to appropriate $5 million to provide some humanitarian aid to Somalia, and that was ignored or voted down. And the fact that we have Somalia and Mozambique and Liberia and Angola and Western Sahara and other countries in Africa in just as bad a shape, and it takes a UN Security Council meeting and an enormous expenditure of funds, maybe more than $1 billion, to deliver food, is just an unnecessary tragedy that can be prevented with early action to promote human rights and some sort of peaceful settlement of the numerous civil wars.
So
that's what I deplore.
So what kind of precedent do you see here? If we've done it here, do we have to do it elsewhere? Or can we distinguish this from Yugoslavia, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't think so. I would like to see it long overdue in a session in Yugoslavia, at least to defend Bosnians against the Serbs. But I think the leadership ought to come through the United Nations, but from the European community with our joining in, not with the United States in the forefront as it has been in the Persian Gulf War and in Somalia. The fact is that the UN has become increasingly effective since the Soviet Union fragmented and stopped blocking every action. And now I would like to see a more routine opportunity for the Secretary General to move quite early in these obvious situations in Africa and the Third World primarily that are easily detected early enough to do something with a very minimal expenditure of funds.
All of these, in sort of a broad case, involve human rights situations. You have given these Carter-Manill Prizes for a number of years now, and they've usually gone to international groups. I'm interested you're giving it to American groups this time.
Well, we've given the award to Sri Lankans, to Jews and Palestinians in Israel and occupied territories, to the Sisulu family in South Africa, to Guatemalans, to Chileans, to those refugees from the Soviet Union. This time, particularly because it's necessary for all of us to recognize that it's not just other people who violate human rights or ignore them. We decided to concentrate on our own country. One reason, obviously, is that it's the 500th anniversary of Columbus' discovery. We also don't believe that it's right to blame Christopher Columbus for the problems concerning Haitian refugees and American Indians and others in our own nation. So this is why we decided to give it to these two outstanding organizations who, for 12 years in one case, 22 years in the other, have tried to defend the rights of people in our country, quite often in a very frustrating and unsupported way.
You should mention very quickly in the 20 seconds we have left the two groups that are getting it, because it's the Haitian Refugee Center and the
Defense Fund for American Indians. Those
right.
two, yes.
Very worthy recipients to split that prize. Mr. President, good to have you here. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure.